Hi, Janelle. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thank you.
So your essay is called The Unknown Bundle. What is the unknown bundle and how does this relate to this conversation? How is this concept useful to us?
So I don't know if everyone got this from revivals in their parts of the country, but I was in the upper Midwest in Michigan, and this was a concept that I was very familiar with. And the idea behind it is that when you are saved, and especially when you're sanctified, that there might be things that come up later in life that you weren't expecting. And part of our giving everything to God includes the unknown of what might come into life later. And often this was described as a little bundle kind of thing to give us that metaphor. And also the concept, the other way I heard it described was as if there was a spotlight shined on something, would we be willing to walk into it and see what God was opening up before us? And so that's where the idea comes from for me.
I see. Okay, excellent. So what part of the unknown bundle is LGBTQ plus affirming?
Well, for me, it was very much LGBTQ people, relationships that opened this up for me. I pursued ministry for a long time, was ordination track, served in every kind of thing you could serve in. I'm that kind of, that you all know, you're all talking about being that kind of Nazarene. And I went to a seminar where I met a young student at Mid-America who was gay, and he was very resistant to like admitting that and owning that because he didn't know what to do with that in the Bible. And so through this thing we went through, he asked me, like, would you go through the Bible with me? And I'm like, well, absolutely. I have no idea where to go. So I called my social professor from undergrad. I did not go to a Nazarene school. And he gave me a book, and Luke and I met at Panera every week and went through this. And where it really just unraveled for me was realizing that the way that we use Bible verses against women in ministry is the exact same way that we use Bible verses against LGBTQ folks. And if it was okay for me to be a minister, now I've got a problem. Because this person in front of me is just as human as I am. And that was the moment where I knew that things were going to change forever.
Wow. That's powerful. So imagining this unknown bundle, how do you introduce somebody who's recognizing that within this bundle is becoming a fully affirming? How can you guide them on that journey?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is they need to look around them and go and ask themselves, do I know someone that's gay? Because I think the answer to that question is usually yes. And that doesn't mean, again, as you've all said, go and ask them all the questions. But I think it's a starting point for thinking about what do I think and feel inside of me. And then the number one resource I recommend, I'm a resource kind of person, is Changing Our Minds by David Gushee. David does a phenomenal job of outlining all of the scripture, giving very clear understanding of what it says and what it means and what it doesn't mean. In the middle of the book, while I don't stop there, he does say to people, like, if you can't be fully affirming, you still have a responsibility to treat people as humans. And here's 10 things you can do to treat them as humans, even if you are not fully there yet. And then he goes on to address transgenderism and some other more, I would say, difficult issues for some people. And he is so kind and clear and purposeful and honest about where this came from for him. It changed. It was the last book I needed to read in some ways, because at that point I knew, like, to sit. And so I think that is a great resource. And then it's finding people to talk to. And that may feel impossible for people. So I'd encourage them, join this group, find some people to talk to, look online, find some groups. There are lots of ex-evangelical groups and stuff like that that will give you resources for this. And so to restate what's already been said, go out and do your work. Google is there for you. It will help you find things. And then from there, you can continue to develop and grow in your relationships with others.
So these are really valuable tools for engaging in these conversations with folks who maybe aren't affirming. That doesn't always go as smoothly as maybe you might expect.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts or suggestions on how to sort of manage the inevitable pushback and maybe heightened emotions that might come up in these conversations?
Yeah, it's I have to lay my cards on the table. I live in Denver, and it's pretty accepting here. And having those conversations is not as hard as it would be, I think, as I is still in the Midwest. However, I think you know, I run a group, and one of our ground rules is don't be a jerk, or whatever word you want to put in there. I think that it's totally a fair boundary to set with people when you go to have this conversation. If it's getting heated, to say, hey, like, I'm willing to have the conversation with you, but we need to be kind. We need to make sure that we're not hurting each other. We can talk about ideas, and we can wrestle with this, but if you're being mean or you're insulting me, I'm going to walk away. And I didn't learn that in the Church of the Nazarene. So if you need permission to set boundaries, do that. I think also, and I wouldn't have said this about myself several years ago, but as I've become more settled, I guess, with this issue and other issues, and as I know where I stand both internally, like with how I treat others, and intellectually with what I know, it's okay in those conversations to stop and take a deep breath and center yourself in what you know. Put your feet on the ground, connect with the earth. She is there for you, and she will give you the strength to be in yourself and to be confident in what you say. And by the way, that does not break the special rules, and it will not make you lose your sanctification, to believe in yourself and to say the things that God has led you into and that God has put in front of you. And I think that that's the only way we can have good conversation. And while I may not be as patient as your dad with some people, I still work hard to sit at the table as long as I can. And I've found that has been working.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's really key to prioritize your own well-being and know your own limits and set those boundaries. I think that's hard to do, but it's really necessary. Yeah, thank you so much for those really concrete, sort of actionable advice. I think it's something that's hard to do, but you've made it a lot easier. So thanks so much, Janel.
Thank you.